Have you ever bought something only to regret it later? Maybe a car, a tool, or even a gadget. Well, the same thing happens with firearms, and more often than you'd think. Thousands of Americans each year are trading, selling, or pawning guns they once thought were the perfect fit. But here's the kicker. The guns they're getting rid of are some of the most popular and effective ones on the market. Today, I want to talk about the most returned guns in the U.S. right now and break down why so many people are letting go of them. Trust me, the reasons might surprise you. Now, before we jump in, let me tell you, this isn't about bad guns. In fact, every gun we'll discuss today is excellent in its own right. The problem often comes down to mismatched expectations, misinformation, or even panic buying. I've been there myself, buying a firearm only to realize later it wasn't quite what I needed. So in this video, we're going to explore which guns top the return list, why people are giving them up, and why you might want to think twice before making the same decision. Let's dive in. Before we get into the guns themselves, let's talk about what I mean by returning a gun. Obviously, you can't just walk back into a store and say, "Hey, I want my money back." But what happens is people trade them in, sell them to pawn shops, or even list them online. The point is, these firearms are changing hands, and in massive numbers. Now, this trend isn't entirely new, but it exploded during the big panic buying phase that started in 2020. You probably remember it. Gun stores were wiped clean, shelves were empty, and people were buying whatever they could get their hands on, whether or not they fully understood what they were buying. Fast forward a few months or years, and a lot of those purchases started coming back as trade-ins. People realized they bought guns that didn't meet their needs, or in some cases scared them because they weren't as user-friendly as expected. One of the biggest factors here is education, or lack of it. A lot of folks, especially first-time buyers, didn't understand key details like how a gun's safety works, the differences between striker-fired and hammer-fired systems, or what a firearm is really designed for. Add in fears about changing laws and regulations, and you've got a recipe for buyer's remorse. So this video isn't about bashing anyone for returning a gun. It's about learning from those trends and helping people make better, more informed decisions. With that said, let's get into the list of the most returned guns in the U.S. right now. Trust me, some of these will be eye-openers. All right, let's kick things off with the #1 most returned gun in the U.S. right now, the AR rifle. Now, if you've been around firearms for any amount of time, this probably doesn't surprise you. The AR platform has been the most popular rifle in America for over a decade. But here's the twist. Its popularity is also one of the reasons so many of them are being returned. First off, there are just so many ARs out there. Even if a small percentage of people decide to trade theirs in, it adds up to a massive number. But the bigger issue is fear. A lot of people think the government is going to ban ARs and they'll get in trouble for owning one. This fear has been around for years, and while I understand it, I think it's misplaced. Most bans come with a grandfather clause, meaning if you already own one, you're safe. Plus, the current legal landscape suggests a nationwide ban is unlikely anytime soon. Still, fear is fear, and for some folks, it's easier to just get rid of the rifle than to deal with the uncertainty. Now moving on to #2, the AR pistol. This one is fascinating because it's returned for reasons similar to the AR rifle, but with a few extra complications. The biggest issue here is the arm brace. Depending on who's running the ATF, these braces are either legal or illegal, and that back and forth has left a lot of owners feeling frustrated. Many people don't want to risk owning something that might be considered a felony one day and fine the next. It's unfortunate because AR pistols are incredible for close-quarter situations and survival scenarios. They're compact, powerful, and fit easily in a backpack. But again, the legal uncertainty drives a lot of returns. And finally, we get to #3, the Glock handgun. Now, this one might surprise some of you, but let me explain. The Glock is an amazing handgun. It's reliable, durable, and trusted by law enforcement and militaries worldwide. But it's also one of the most returned guns, especially by new owners. Why? Because it's not exactly beginner-friendly. Glocks don't have external safeties like some other handguns, and for first-time buyers, that can feel unsafe. On top of that, a lot of people don't fully understand striker-fired systems and how they work. So they buy a Glock because someone told them it's the best gun ever, only to realize later it doesn't match their comfort level or experience. For example, I've talked to gun store owners who say they've seen a wave of Glocks coming back from new gun owners. They're often in perfect condition. Never fired, still in the box. The buyers realized they weren't comfortable carrying it or handling it and decided to trade it in for something else, like a revolver or a gun with a manual safety. It's not that the Glock is a bad gun, it's just a bad fit for someone who isn't familiar with its design. Now, before we move on, I want to mention a few honorable mentions. These aren't as commonly returned as the ones I've just talked about, but they still pop up frequently in trade-ins. Guns like the CMMG Banshee, SIG MPX, CZ Scorpion, and Grand Power Strybog often get returned because they're compact tactical-style firearms that can be tricky for first-time owners to navigate. Plus, legal concerns around their configurations, especially with braces, make them less appealing to some buyers. So there you have it. The AR rifle, Arkansas pistol, and Glock handgun top the list of most returned firearms, with a few honorable mentions rounding it out. But here's the thing. Just because these guns are being returned doesn't mean they're bad. In fact, they're some of the best firearms out there. The issue usually comes down to expectations, legal confusion, or a mismatch between the gun and the buyer's needs. Next up, I'm going to tell you why I still think these guns are great choices and how you can avoid making the same mistakes when buying your next firearm. Stick with me. All right, so we've talked about why these guns are being returned, but let me tell you why I still think they're some of the best options out there. First up, the AR rifle. There's a reason it's been the most popular firearm in America for years. It's versatile, reliable, and customizable. Whether you're looking for a hunting rifle, a home defense weapon, or just something for the range, the AR can do it all. Plus, with the abundance of parts and accessories, you can tailor it to fit your exact needs. Sure, legal fears are real, but they shouldn't stop you from owning a firearm as capable as this one. Next, the AR pistol. This is one of the most compact and effective firearms you can own. It's perfect for close-quarter situations and even as a survival tool. The legal issues surrounding braces are frustrating, I won't deny that. But if you stay informed and adapt to the laws, the AR pistol can be an invaluable addition to your collection. Its size, power, and versatility make it a standout choice. Finally, the Glock handgun. I get it, it's not for everyone, especially new gun owners. But once you're familiar with its design, the Glock becomes one of the most reliable and straightforward handguns you can own. Law enforcement and military personnel around the world trust this gun, and that says a lot. If you take the time to learn it and train with it, a Glock can serve you for a lifetime. So while these guns might not fit everyone's preferences, their strengths far outweigh the reasons people are returning them. Let's talk next about how to make sure your next gun purchase is the right one for you. Now that we've covered the most returned guns and why they're still great, let's talk about how to avoid making the same mistakes when buying your next firearm. First and foremost, do your research. I can't stress this enough. Take the time to learn about the differences between striker-fired and hammer-fired guns, manual safeties versus trigger safeties, and double-action versus single-action mechanisms. Each type has pros and cons, and knowing what suits you best can save you a lot of hassle down the road. Next, whenever possible, try before you buy. Visit a range that offers rentals and test out different firearms. You'll get a much better feel for what works for you, from the grip and trigger pull to the overall weight and size. Don't just rely on advice from friends or family, as well-meaning as they may be. What works for them might not work for you. Finally, stay informed about legal changes. laws surrounding certain firearms, especially ARs and AR pistols, can be tricky. By keeping up with the latest rulings, you'll be better prepared to make a confident decision. If you follow these tips, you'll not only avoid buyer's remorse, but also end up with a firearm that fits your needs perfectly. Now, let's wrap this up with a quick recap. We've talked about the most returned guns in the U.S., the AR rifle, Arkansas pistol, and Glock handgun, and why they're finding their way back to gun stores so often. From legal uncertainties to mismatched expectations, it's clear these returns are less about the guns themselves and more about a lack of preparation or understanding. But here's the bottom line. All three of these firearms are fantastic tools when used for the right purpose. The AR rifle and pistol are unmatched in versatility and effectiveness, and the Glock handgun has earned its reputation as one of the most reliable firearms on the planet. The key is knowing what you're looking for, understanding your own needs, and staying informed about what you're buying. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever purchased a gun and regretted it? Or maybe you've traded in one of the firearms we talked about today. Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your experiences. And if this video helped you or gave you something to think about, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, love God, love your family, and love guns. I'll see you next time.